Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz Chess postmortem video. This is a postmortem of my Blitz Chess game number 180. I was black here and my opponent kicked off with b4, the Orangutan opening. This is also called the Sokolsky, but I looked this up on the Wikipedia. The Orangutan is the older name. Sokolsky wrote a paper on this in the 60s, I guess, a Russian player. But the name from the 20s came from Tartikover, who was visiting New York, playing in a tournament in New York, and then visiting the zoo there, and he had seen an orangutan and talked to it, and the orangutan told him to play this opening. At least that's the story that Tartikover told. So anyway, b4. It does allow an early bishop b2, and so my thought here was to put up my pawns on d6 and e5, and then put my knight to d7. Also, the knight on c6 is uncomfortable because it can be chased away with the move b4 to b5 at any time. But looking at the opening book, it seems the top choices here are e5 and knight f6. So e5 immediately rather than building up with d6. You don't really need that. And also d5 and e6, building up a pawn chain in this direction. So these are all good moves. The move I played is okay, but maybe those other moves give more of an advantage to black. But I played d6, he went ahead with bishop b2, and then I played e5. And there's actually a few moves in the database there, and but he played e3 at this point, and now we're really out of the opening book. And you'll see it's an opening that gives an advantage to black, which is why you don't see it too much at the top levels. But it's not a huge advantage. It's basically just equalizing rather than pressing for an advantage with white. And we stay in this range of equality for quite a while. I'm just developing naturally, and white, on the other hand, is expanding with a lot of pawn moves and maybe falling behind in development. And at some point, I should be able to take advantage of it. Here, it didn't like that move c6. Thinks I should just castle here, knight c, and then knight b6. Just get on castles, e4 even. Get on with the business of development. I was building up slowly again with the idea of c6, d5, e4, and getting this light squared pawn chain here, and also fixing the pawn on d4 to block the dark squared bishop. So if I can get away with that, it seems like it's a good strategy. And actually this move a4 lets me, because now I can throw in b4, e4, kicking the bishop, so that gains a tempo, and then I can throw in d5, and I've got my pawn chain. And it is a slight edge to black here. So decent strategy. So he starts undermining, or he starts expanding, continues expanding on the queen side. And I don't like to let this expansion go on too far. If you end up too cramped on the queen side, it can cause problems in your development, and also later on in the endgame. These advanced pawns can be dangerous. So I play the move b6 to challenge it immediately. He goes knight e2, and then I play a5. And so it's a pretty good strategy, I think, undermining these pawns. And in fact, if you look at all the choices, it seems that there's only one good move for white here, which is b5. I was expecting this move, b takes, or rather c takes b6, which you see is one of the choices there. But it's not good because of bishop takes b4 check. I had missed that idea. So he can't really play that. He could play b takes a5, and then b takes c5 would be played, grabbing a pawn over here. And these doubled pawns are weak over here, and I win a pawn in the center, so this is good for me. If he takes, I can just take and get another pawn. So, well, it's just a trade. But, so there's no point in white taking, and in fact, the engine has white playing a knight move, knight d2. So that's either of those moves lead to trouble, and also bishop a3, which he played, gives me quite an advantage. The only way for white to really survive here is to play the move b5. And that takes away this idea of queen b4 check, or at least that wouldn't win a pawn anymore. And now I was thinking to just take on c5, because I want to get something here to protect, to shield the c pawn from attacks on the c file. But then he can throw in b takes c6, which is going to force my knight away. And then, what's it say, knight a3. How about d takes c5, the more natural move, and bishop takes c5. So I'll probably round up the c6 pawn immediately, but anyway, this is about an equal position, whereas any other move leads to an advantage for black here. So bishop a3 was played, and yeah, that's one of the moves where I can get an advantage. I take here and take here, and I'm just winning a pawn. And so I have an edge here. I continue just finishing my development, getting my king out of the center, protecting my loose pawns, and I'm doing pretty well here. Just as I build up, I have good squares for my bishops. You know, the bishops on these diagonals here and here are looking pretty strong. So this is a good position for black. In addition to being up a pawn, you'll see that the evaluation is more strongly in favor of black than that. So it's interesting to see how this goes. Bishop b4, knight c1. I'm good so far. See, I'm maintaining this advantage, just getting my bishops to good squares. And this is a good trade for me because it allows me to get in the move d4. So I'm trading off the bishop pair, but I get a really strong pair of pawns in the center here. And then it's right here I make my mistake. So I should just play bishop c3. It's a natural move. And I was thinking about it, but I didn't see necessarily the follow-through. And I was thinking, well, it's pretty interesting to put a rook on the c file and get the queen, force the queen to move. And I realized, well, it involves a bishop trade, but then I end up with a rook on the 7th rank. I thought that would be strong. But I'm totally missing the fact that I'm losing this d-pawn, which is important, whereas bishop c3 defends. In addition to attacking the rook, it defends the c-pawn. So I missed the d-pawn. I missed the idea that the queen came out here, and now there's an attack on my d-pawn, which is only defended by my queen, and it's attacked twice. So I play this horrible move, rook a c8, and we trade bishops, and then he just grabs this pawn. So he takes it with the queen. Okay, either is good. And we reached a position of equality from one where I had a strong advantage. So definitely want to look ahead a little further than that when you're playing. Queen c7, I just move out of the way and defend my rook. And then he can force some trades. It's interesting. It thinks knight g4 could be played here. Yeah, you can throw in knight g4. It threatens a pretty significant check here. So, for example, knight g4, rook takes, queen here check, king moves, queen here check, king up, and then you grab... No, you can't grab the rook in the corner. I'm not sure this works. Oh, knight g4, he just takes the rook and you take back. That's what the line the computer's recommending, so you don't grab on h2. Okay, I took the rook. And now maybe white has a slight edge. I've got this pawn which is hard to defend. I play knight g4, which is the recommended move here, just trying to be active with my pieces and make threats. And he plays g3 to defend, and then I go queen f3. So maybe that's the mistake here. It says I should go back to f5 at this point. Yeah, I didn't see this move knight d2, which is pretty obvious. Attacks the pawn, attacks my queen. And now... to stay in the game, I have to play queen f6, which I don't want to play because I don't want to give up my queen, but I don't want to lose the queen to a trade. In the long run, this is a very strong outside pass pawn, and so white has a very good end game here. So I didn't want to get the queens off, but the way I play it, it probably is losing because he can just grab here, and now you know, I have a back rank problem. I can't take because queen down here will lead to checkmate. So I have to defend my rook. And obviously his rook is well defended. I can't take it with my queen because he takes with the knight. So that allows him to trade. And then queen to d8. Yeah, he could play queen d8 pinning my knight, and this is pretty uncomfortable. It's probably what he should have played. And I can defend with my king too. I was thinking I would defend with the queen, but a5, he starts pushing that pawn. Probably a very straightforward win from that point. Fortunately, my opponent was starting to run low on time and was not making the best moves here. He wants to trade queens to make his win simpler, but I'm going to avoid the queen trade. And we go through some maneuvers. And finally, I have a moment where I can... move a pawn up so my king is not getting mated on the back rank anymore. And then he continues to try and trade queens. And then he comes up with the plan, which is probably the right one, of pushing his pawn. And you see the evaluation is all in favor of white all through this. But I still have some counter chances. I'm trying to chase this knight away so I can get a check on this diagonal and pick up the pawn if it races too far ahead. So that's my plan. But it's not good enough. It says knight e5 can be played here. I thought, oh, that's knight d4, yeah. Knight d4, I just check and I can grab the knight and then maybe I can stop the pawn. It says knight e5 should be played here. And that's a good move. It's defended by the queen, and it makes it difficult for me to get onto this diagonal. It says I have to play knight e8. I think I'm going to end up having to sacrifice a piece to stop the pawn. Knight to c7. Yeah, this has got to be winning for white. Okay, so even my strategy of chasing his knight away was not working, but he was so low on time, he just pushed ahead with a7. And now this is a losing move, so I can take here. And he can't take back, which he did in the game. He took, and I mated him. But if he doesn't take back, he could go to the back rank. First I thought this might be mate, but if I go here with my queen, he has to come back this way. Then I can come here and maybe pick up his pawn. Queen d3 check. King g7, queen takes f3, and queen takes a7. Yeah, and I've got a knight, and he's got a pawn. This would be a very difficult position to win, but anyway, black is still playing for a win here at least. So after g takes f3, yeah, after he allowed g takes f3, it was actually a winning game, whereas here he just has to move the knight to some good square, like e5 or d2, it says, are good squares, even h4. And so that's the way the game ended, though. He played a7, and I played these moves and got this nice checkmate here. This is always a good checkmating pattern to see. The queen takes away all of these squares, so that just leaves these two squares here that the king can run to, and if they're blockaded by his own pieces or by, say, you have a bishop here cutting across that diagonal, that's a nice checkmating pattern to store in your memory banks. Okay, hope you guys enjoyed that. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I'll see you again later. Bye.